This is really the biggest change, I think, between tribal life and today, this concept of disposable relationships. Today, I want to address the elephant in the room, the fact that we've got a mental health crisis and it's getting worse. I dug up some statistics. 25% of the adults in the US report feeling lonely frequently, once a week or more. 40 to 45% of adolescents and young adults report feeling lonely frequently. 60 to 65% of college students. There was a report in 2023 by the US Surgeon General talking about the loneliness epidemic, how it's impacting so many people, the vast majority of the population. 10% of the worldwide population experience depression. There's 8 billion people in the world. That's 800 million people are going through some level of depression. It's higher for women than men. It might sound like it's higher for men because I think it's talked about more for men. And men also have higher suicide rates. The extreme stuff, it's always men, but women are suffering more. And they're suffering more in silence. Speaking of suicide, it's also an epidemic. It's the second, third, fourth leading cause of death in a lot of demographics, all the way from adolescence, middle school, all the way up to 65. People who are older have less issues of mental health. I think they just settle into an acceptance on who they are. Being retired also calms you. You don't have stress from work. There used to be an inverted bell curve where the youth was happy, and then as you get older and middle age in the working years, that's when it got really stressful for people. And then as you tailed off, end of your work career and then into retirement, you got happier again. Now it's completely changed where youth is actually the worst. Being a teenager today is worse than it's ever been, and it's worse than any other age group. And yes, I think social media has something to do with that, but I think it really comes down to we don't know how to have good, healthy relationships. It's not only relationships with others, it's relationships with yourself. Who am I in this society? And what's my role here? What am I supposed to do? And are others going to judge me for it? Am I connected? Part of the problem with having always on, always connected internet devices is we've exploded our social circle. The number of people we interact with on a daily, weekly, monthly basis is just outrageous. It's completely outsized, even compared to a couple of decades ago when we had AOL dial-up modems, but even early internet days before mobile phones. You could be connected, but then you didn't have anything portable that was connected to the internet. So you walked away and you got outside and you breathed fresh air and you talked to your friends in person, face to face. A lot of that has gone away simply because it's so much easier to pick this thing up and go to an app and scroll. It's not that youth aren't capable of having these relationships. It's just that you need two people to connect. This is a case of a weakest link where if one person has only a certain level of relationship skills, the relationship can only ever go up to that point. It can never go above it. Relationship skills have to be elevated together. This is one of the things I want to do. I'm drawn to do. I'm compelled to do. How can we teach people, especially youth, how to have good, healthy relationships with themselves and with others? 5% of adults in the US have considered suicide. That's over 13 million. 12% of young adults, 18 to 25, have suicidal ideation. 19% of high school students. This is all from the CDC. I don't bring this up to judge any of these people. It's not you, it's the system. The system has put us in a situation where this is normal. This is why I'm doing this podcast, is because I want to say this is not normal. And I want to prove to you this is not normal. And I want to give you the antidote. Society is pushing us in this direction. It doesn't care about individuals' well-being. It cares about GDP and growth and consumption and production. All the things that it requires to keep pushing those forward come at the expense of our own mental health. And now that it's gotten so bad, we need to address the mental health crisis. We're going to give you the Calm app. We're going to give you the Headspace app. We're going to give you a mental health day. That's great and all, but it's just drops in the bucket compared to what we need to be doing.
Dave, thank you for sharing. I am holding a lot of space with people right now to talk about this topic in my work and the day-to-day. I talk a lot about youth mental health. I've done this for the past 20 years. Your intuition is right, and what you're feeling is very correct. In having a lot of these conversations, again, with people in community and teachers, people even in charge of some of these systems, the emotion behind it is really what I just want to hold. it's okay to not feel okay. Even in the way you were talking about this, I can tell it feels overwhelming to you and it makes you feel not okay. And I also feel very similarly. There's just a sense of confusion on why this is happening. So having these conversations is really important because I'm having these conversations with everybody. I'm out surfing and people are like, what do you do? I work at Stanford. And they're like, oh my God. And they're like 30 minutes of, this is my grandson. It's just top of mind for everybody. I just really acknowledge that feeling of worry and fear that we're all collectively feeling. How is this going to go, especially when we're seeing our young people struggling so much? I just appreciate how you're bringing together the feelings that a lot of us are having around what's happening in the current mental health crisis. We're all collectively feeling some worry and fear about what's happening with our young people because they are our future.
So what I'm hoping to convey here is, first of all, if you're struggling, it's not your fault. There is help available. And I'm going to at least outline what I think the issue is. And maybe if you agree with it, it will help you at least understand, okay, I live in a society that isn't necessarily going to support my mental health. I've got to do some extra work in order to make these things happen. There's not a lot of depression and suicide in indigenous cultures. In fact, there's practically none. There's a couple of books that I recommend. One's called The Awakened Ape and the other's called Tribe. They have some stories in there about indigenous cultures. The only examples they found for suicide, old people who fear they're going to be a burden on the rest of the tribe. It's a very selfless act. If your spouse dies, you have such great grief, you might take your life. If you're in battle with an enemy, as a heroic thing, running into battle, signaling to the tribe, I care so much about the tribe, I'm going to give my life to try to protect it. If you think you might get captured and tortured, there are very few exceptions where tribes had suicide. This missionary went down to the Brazilian Amazon rainforest and talked to a tribe there. He's a missionary, and he's trying to convert people to Christianity. And one of the stories he told was about how his stepmom killed herself and how that was such an impactful event on him, and it really brought him closer to the Lord. After he finished the story, the entire tribe laughed. They laughed at him. They thought it was just so funny. It was so outrageous. Why would you kill yourself? We don't kill ourselves. They had no concept of why you might do that. They weren't mean-spirited. They just had this complete bewilderment. This never entered their mind of possibility. There's a lot of stories of Westerners joining Native American tribes. Benjamin Franklin said there are numerous settlers who were captured as adults, maybe even taken hostage. They become part of the tribe, and they prefer it, and they live that way. There was never one instance that they could find of one Native American coming and joining our modern society. And I think that's very telling. We essentially are designed for tribal life. Like all primates, we evolved in troops, if you will, or tribes, small groups where you just were with them the whole time and you were connected with them. Every day you wake up, same people, and you'd have to have interactions with them. One day you're supportive of them and the next day they're supportive of you. Tribes weren't that big. There's only 35, 40 people to interact with. That meant that you were working on those relationships. You were strengthening those relationships every day, day in and day out. It's only these 40 people that you have to strengthen relationships with. Whereas now we've got essentially what I call this diffusion of relational energy. You only have so much energy you can devote to relationships in your life. There's only so much time in the day. You only have so much energy you can put out there. And where do you spend that relational energy? We're spreading it across hundreds, if not thousands, of interactions with people across our lives. Our ancestors only ever had to spend that relational energy on these few tribal members. So there's this diffusion. You can't get as deep with people anymore, or at least it's harder to. You have to make this effort to get deep with people. This is what I call the big delta, a change from one thing to another. There's this big delta from tribal life to modern life. And we don't talk about that. We don't notice it. It's just here. We grow up in the society and we think, oh, it's always been this way. But it hasn't always been this way. In fact, it's only been this way since the Industrial Revolution, less than 300 years ago. That's really when things changed a lot. We don't have a concept of how it could have been or how it used to be because we don't live with that. We don't sit with that. There was this simpler time of tribal life and people were just generally happier. And I'm not saying we should all go back to tribal life. I'm just saying that maybe we need to look at what our ancestors did in those tribes and try to emulate that a little bit more in our lives.
I really appreciate what you just shared, Dave. You know, I am Indigenous Native American, the Yaqui tribe from both of my parents. I was raised with Indigenous teachings and this Yaqui way of thinking. If you've ever heard of Carlos Castaneda, the New Age movement was based on a lot of Yaqui principles and ways of thinking. And everybody's indigenous to somewhere. We all come from an indigenous tribe in a certain place where there were practices like you're describing. And so I think all of us are away from this way of living that is more true to ourselves. This idea of there being a delta, we're at this transition point in our society where I think we're seeing the problem. And then we're remembering in the United States, we put the onus of change on Native Americans as indigenous to America, and that we'll have all the answers. And okay, we might have some ways of thinking about things that are helpful, like you're sharing, but we all hold wisdom and knowledge of our ancestors that we can bring back into ourselves. I think we are really overwhelmed with the diffusion. There's so many people, so many interactions, but you can kind of choose your tribe. I have been raised with this idea of the Hopi prophecy, the rainbow people. This prophecy is ancient. In this time of transition, people will come together from all races, tribes, and backgrounds, and they'll reconnect humanity because we'll have gotten disconnected. And so what you're sharing is really this kind of idea of this rainbow people, this Hopi prophecy. But I don't think it's just the Hopi or Native Americans that are thinking this way. I think it's a collective human thought.
This system that we've designed for ourselves, it's the opposite of helping people thrive. It's causing people to struggle. I have a theory about medicine men from Native cultures. Modern medicine is amazing, and it's one of the things that has allowed us to live our lives a lot more fully and healthily. But there was a role for Native medicine men. There was knowledge about things in nature that could help people. But I think the number one thing that medicine men did, they worked with people who weren't doing well, and they made them feel, despite your sickness, despite your illness, we still care about you. We want you to be around. We are investing so much time and energy from the tribe in trying to heal you that it kicks in our own defenses. Our own immune system is amazing. And so things that our body can fight off, it has the best chance of fighting it off when you've got people around you saying, we want you to stay with us. We want you to get better. If you didn't have that, then you're more likely to just wither and die. The medicine men were there to invest a lot of resources in convincing this person to kick their own immune system into high gear to get better.
I love that, and I believe it. I think I spent some time in community feeling a little bit like a community shaman, and that's not to say that's actually what we were, but we felt like that sometimes where we were just trying to create connections where we saw loneliness. I love how you framed this idea of inspiring the self, the immune system, these internal healing ways. My takeaway for folks is I'd really just want people to know that we all have indigenous roots and practices. What I do with folks sometimes who are feeling lonely or disconnected is to learn about those. It can just be helpful to learn, how did my ancestors live? How did they live communally? Sometimes that's a good way to remember.
So there's three factors that I think are really important to keep in mind when we're talking about this big delta. One is that we are social creatures and we care a lot about interconnecting with other people. It's considered torture to hold someone in solitary confinement because we as humans, we need to connect with other people. So we're social creatures. We're designed to connect with other people. The second thing that humans have that a lot of other species don't is this capacity for deception. The third factor is in tribal times, we lived the infinite game where the interactions you have with people are the same people and they go on forever until the end of your life. So this helped keep people honest. In tribes, if you screwed someone over today, that would have ramifications tomorrow and for the rest of time. And so it was in the interest of everyone involved, not just you, not just that person, but the whole tribe to get back to peace. Anytime there was a rift, anytime there was a disagreement, there was a way of coming together and getting to closure and moving on. We have that in our society today, but it's like the legal system. It's just so much easier to screw someone over today and never interact with them for the rest of your life. And it doesn't have any impact on your life. We have disposable relationships. I see this especially in younger people where you're best friends with someone, you're doing everything together, and then just one little thing happens and never talking together again. That is at the root of this loneliness crisis. You can't rely on any relationship, no matter how close. It could just go away in an instant. This is the root of our problem. And in order to fix this problem, I think we need to level people up together. If you see this video and you resonate with it, send it to someone you want to connect with and say, let's connect together on this and let's commit to a relationship where we're not going to ghost each other the first time things are getting hard. We're going to come together and we're going to resolve things. We're going to figure out how to repair a relationship. We're going to get other people involved who care about our relationship and us staying together. You want a tribe of people around you. If you don't have any other common friends, it's so easy for that friendship to go away because you're never going to run into them again. Whereas if you cultivate a group of friends, then the other people are involved and have a stake in and care about whether the two of you are getting along. This is really the biggest change, I think, between tribal life and today, this concept of disposable relationships. And I just want to bring it to the forefront. I want to talk about it. I want to bring it out into the open because I think that is the key to fixing a lot of these issues. This loneliness, this suicidal ideation, this depression comes from this lack of really believing that I have close, healthy relationships I can count on.
Wow. I think that's a great idea.
Well, thanks for watching. And if you want to support us, please share this with others. Our goal is simple. We want everyone in the world to live a happy and healthy life, and that starts with you. See you next time.